entertainment, and going to shows. Further proof of that is what happened last night here in Las Vegas, and that was the entire cancellation of David Lee Roth's residency here in Las Vegas at the Mandalay Bay. So again, I understand people don't want to talk about this, don't want to hear about it, but you're just in denial, or you got your head in the sand if you don't want to, because you can see it is impacting everything once again. And that includes this residency that David Lee Roth has now canceled completely. He blew out the first two shows, New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. What I had heard about those cancellations and why the first two shows were canceled is because one of the guitar players in his band had COVID, and they had hoped that he would bounce back quickly and be able to do the shows, and that's why they canceled those two shows. Then they had 2 nights off, and they figured maybe 4 or 5 days he would be able to play. I don't know what the status there. They've been very cryptic with giving out information as to exactly what happened. Late last night, Eastern time, but probably around 6 o'clock or so here in Vegas, if you follow me on social media, I put out a teaser on Twitter saying that I'm hearing from reliable sources, and I was, that David Lee Roth's entire residency was going to be canceled. And I checked with some sources and was told that it was about to be announced imminently that all the shows were going to be blown out. Shortly afterwards, it was announced that the entire residency is now canceled. Not postponed, canceled. And again, they are citing COVID and COVID concerns, COVID issues, but there's really no clear-cut statement on this as to what exactly happened and why. They're just the tagline that you get on all these COVID-related cancellations is always out of an abundance of caution. That's what you always hear. It's kind of strange during this whole thing how people are handling it, because I don't know whether it's over liability or privacy or what have you, but there are so many times where people, I know 3-4 musicians right now have COVID, and a couple of them said, don't say anything. I don't understand. I think it's because they're worried about their gigs, or they're worried about they're going to feel like they did something wrong, or they're guilty of something. I don't know. It's just the whole thing is so crazy. The mixed messaging is so crazy. Said it a million times, but there's a lot of that right now. There's like people that have it that don't want anybody to know they have it. People who have it and are telling you what's happening every second to them while they have it and are super public about it. Bands going through lineup changes because people won't get vaxxed. It's just nuts what's going on. Who's ready to go? There's bands that are go play in a club infested with COVID, and they'll take a gig right now playing in it. And then there's other bands you're not going to see, and members you're not going to see for years, who are locked down and not going to leave their house. It's just all over the map. So what exactly triggered David Lee Roth to cancel his entire run of shows here in Vegas? We really don't know, because Roth on his social media just put out a graphic, and we know Dave is wacky as the day is long. As much as you might love him, he's as wacky as the day is long. We know that, right? So you don't really know what's going on, and a lot of his stuff is kind of cryptic and hard to figure as well. And he just put out some graphic, and it just said, all he put on social media, a funny thing happened on the way to Vegas, or something along those lines. So that's all you're getting from him right now. The official statement from House of Blues / Live Nation, which owns House of Blues, is basically, like I said, abundance of caution, COVID-19, what have you. So we don't know if this was Dave getting skittish. We don't know if this was the band members continuing to be sick and they couldn't replace them. We don't know if these shows are going to be rescheduled. We don't know if this was Live Nation and the House of Blues pulling the plug. which of course is a big, big corporation, and there's a lot of they've got a lot of things they have to deal with and manage with all of this as well. So we're not sure. We're not sure exactly what resulted in these shows going away, but they have gone away. Now, here in Vegas, you do have some things that are still happening. Most shows are still happening on the Strip. I mentioned that starting tomorrow is the biggest convention annually here in Vegas, CES, which stands for Consumer Electronics Show. That has been scaled back. That has gone to reduced capacity. They have cut the hours back and the days back, and that is being impacted by COVID in a big way because a lot of people come from other countries for that. It is an enormous convention. So it's still happening, but it's happening with a big cloud over it right now and some definite changes and scheduled still to start tomorrow. What went on with Roth, we don't know. But I'll tell you, I mentioned this yesterday. I feel for a lot of people because I met a lot of people here in town that had come in for these David Lee Roth shows on New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. And they were bummed, obviously, that the show was canceled. And some of them, many of them, I am hearing, decided to hang out in Vegas for an extra 4 or 5 days to get to tomorrow, where they would then at least try to catch one show. You follow what I'm saying? The first 2 shows weren't happening, so it was just announced New Year's Eve, New Year's Day was canceled. So there are people that traveled from far away that maybe were planning to go back on the 2nd, on Sunday, and said, you know what, we're here. Let's extend our hotel. Let's reschedule our flights. Let's put 5 more days in Vegas and at least get to see a show and see one of the Roth shows. So whatever shuffling they did with their travel, now they're screwed because they ended up just staying in town at whatever expense for another 4 days or so to not get a show in the end.